Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reimagine 2020 V4. I'm Roshan Mirajkar from MouseBelt, and I'm one of your hosts for this event. We are starting off with our Halloween theme for this event. This is our fourth event, so that's why I'm dressed like this. I'm so excited to be joined here by Jason Lau, the COO at OKCoin. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's start off just by asking you, how has it been for you and your team just coping with the whole virtual situation the past couple months?
Hey, Roshan, thanks for having me. This has certainly been a challenge, right? A challenging year for most of us, and it has been no different for our team. We're based here in San Francisco, and I think the most interesting thing about this year for us has been that we've actually expanded our team quite dramatically over the past 6-7 months, despite the fact that none of us have been in the office. Our office has been closed, and we've had, last I checked, was 30 new people join us over this time. So we have 30 colleagues and teammates that have never met anyone else on our team. So we very quickly sort of transitioned to doing everything online, as most of everyone else is doing, and that's been fun and challenging at the same time.
Yeah, that's actually a cool little fact to start things off, because a lot of, maybe let's say traditional companies are trying to downsize, or they're already going virtual. So glad to hear that, you all being one of the crypto companies in the space are hiring and expanding. A little more on that front, it looks like OKCoin has been up to a lot of different things, especially when it comes to licenses and regulations. I've seen a great push in the Eastern markets, and even in Asia. What can you tell me about the importance for you all of the Asian market, and do you think that you all will continue to see more growth there, or do you think that the U.S., because you said you're in San Francisco, do you think that in the U.S. some things will be easier?
Yeah, on that note, we even just sort of on our licensing and compliance teams, we've added a lot of people, specifically because we are sort of targeting this global approach to regulations and licenses and the like. So on your question around what our efforts have been and sort of what regions we're looking at, we're regulated here in the U.S. We're also regulated in Europe via the Malta regulators over there. Last year, I might be getting my dates wrong, but I think, last year or earlier this year, we got our license in Japan. And so that was a process that took almost 2 years to accomplish. So big props to the team there, as well as we're working on our license today in Singapore. So we've got a whole bunch of things going on. And I think the importance is that, licensing, one, it's obviously the law, right? We have to comply with what governments and regulators are putting in, mostly for consumer protection, but putting in place to make sure that there's this constant building of trust in our space. And two, it permits us to access and sort of build that user base with the backing of these regulators and this permission, right? So regulation is super important. And then, as we think about that broadly, like I mentioned, we do service users globally. So no, I don't want to say one region is more important than another. But our heritage stems from, we were actually originally founded in Beijing in 2013. And so we do have a very strong user base and brand recognition in Asia. And so Asia will always remain sort of a key focus point for us. We mentioned Singapore, we mentioned Japan, but other parts of Asia too, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia are areas that we certainly have users and continue to look to grow that area.
Yeah, and being an exchange, I think you all have a very important job, which is to always give your consumers and different people out there access to the best assets, or even improve the process to which you can be onboarded. So what are some of the things you think are the most important when looking to onboard these new assets? You know, we'll get into DeFi later, but
Sure.
are there any specific things that you all have changed about, let's say, your listing process? You don't have to get too detailed, but it seems
Sure.
like in 2017 there was a large influx of literally assets being made out of thin air. I still see the same thing. So I'm just wondering, from your community, and even you can answer this from your internal team, are there considerations that you've had to like change just because we're in 2020 now, not 2017? Or do you think some things are the nature of our industry, right?
Yeah. You know, first and foremost, I think I want to underline that you know, listings are not done in a vacuum, right? Exchanges ourselves, other exchanges really are providing listings or sorry, list new assets for the purpose of our users, right? And so with that in mind, it always comes down to what do users want access to and what do they want to trade? What do they want the exchange to support? And then you layer on constraints around, well, one, is it legal to list this asset for a certain jurisdiction, right? There are local laws, there are local regulations, there are rules around securities, there's rules around, you know, Malta, for example, has a specific list where you have to sort of, and same for Japan, where you have to get it pre-approved and sort of vouch for, or at least pre-screened by a regulator before you can list it. And so then you sort of look into other constraints around, is there a technical reason why you may or may not list an asset? Is there a, you know, is there economic sort of, is there going to be harm to users if we list this asset? So, you know, we're not only custodians of users' funds, but we're also trying to shape a ecosystem or trading ecosystem where users feel certainly, you know, everyone's responsible for their own trading decisions and investment decisions, but you want to sort of craft something somewhat, you know, there's a sort of garden or walled garden, or I don't know if that's the right word, but sort of this like safe, a little bit of a safety zone or something where users have confidence that the exchange has done due diligence on these projects. So with all that said, right, it's clearly a nuanced and difficult question to answer, but it boils down to demand and constraints, and how do we balance those such that you know, we can create a healthy marketplace to support those assets. You know, there are so many exchanges out there. Every exchange tries to list different things, and not all, you know, not all exchanges are successful in that. And you know, we've had our cases where we tried to list something and perhaps it didn't work out as well as we thought. But that's part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for touching up on, at least you're considering some of those things, right? If we had asked some of these questions to some of the exchanges in 2017, you know, that really wasn't the focus, and I think that's okay, because this industry, for anyone watching, you know, if you're new to the industry, it moves super fast. What's legal now can be illegal a couple months down the line, and like what Jason was saying, the demand from consumers on what they want is ever changing, right? For everyone out there, our last event was focused on DeFi, and I know that you've also been involved with a lot of things at DeFi. But before we get into that, you know, I want to highlight some of the things that is maybe a little different with OKCoin, at least your approach. You know, apart from the just the exchange side. Tell me a little bit about this Bitcoin grant that you worked with actually one of your competitors on. I believe it was BitMEX's parent company. It was like $150,000 grant to support, I believe, Bitcoin development. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, why did you feel it's important to do this? And what would you tell people out there that think everything in crypto is like all competitive, like all networks are competing with each other?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think, you know, Bitcoin is obviously something that's near and dear to us, right? We were founded on the basis of providing access to Bitcoin. And, you know, as our industry has grown, more assets are in existence, more demand for assets. we recognize that Bitcoin obviously has had a 11-year history now. Someone has to do the work, right, to maintain and make sure that Bitcoin's working well for everyone else that's building on top of it, right? And so, part of it is us wanting to do our part, make sure that we are contributing by supporting these core developers or independent developers, to make sure that there is maintenance and development on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's, as everyone knows, is an open source project. People can freely come in and out and contribute, debate. And so by providing, we hope a little bit of support, monetary support, that leads to something that's a little bit more healthy and long-term. So that's sort of the altruistic perspective of why we want to support Bitcoin. But more selfishly is we need also Bitcoin to be healthy, right? It's the basis of our business. It's the basis of our industry. And I'm sure you and myself personally, we would love, we take this for granted a little bit, but we recognize that the participants in the space have a role to play. And so we're hoping to lead by example. And I don't want to say that we influenced others, but Coinbase earlier last week announced that they are going to support Bitcoin core development also. And so, it's great to see. And there are many others that have done this. And I don't want to say that we are one of the only ones, but there are certainly many others. And then on the note about collaborating, right? Yes, our space is competitive, but yes, we're also in this growing ecosystem where we're all working together to build that up, right? I think there's much to be said about what we did with BitMEX, and it just coincidentally worked out, right? We were both looking to support. I think it was Amita that went through, and it's just great that when these things happen, that it works out that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's great that you're doing this, and actually, you should be that trendsetter, I think, because it is easy to forget sometimes in the space that Bitcoin isn't just this this company that is like has private funding or something like that. For like new people watching this or still trying to understand what it is. Like it's a lot of things, but what I think it's important what you said, like there is actually people out there continually working to upgrade the software to make sure everything is good. And not to say that those people control the network in any way, because they don't, but someone has to do all the work there.
Yeah,
related,
so any little bit of
yeah,
support to make sure that they can dedicate that time, whether it's part-time, whether it's full-time, I think they deserve it.
Do you think institutions will, what would you say if institutions came out and not only bought Bitcoin, but started to, I don't know, hire devs and try to learn more about the network? You think they would ever try to fork off another chain of Bitcoin and try to make it their own? Or do you think that like no one would dare?
Yeah, I think we've learned our lessons with the forking craziness. I seriously hope so. 17, 18, we've seen the Bitcoin forks, and we've also seen their performance. I admire people taking some, and it is, feel free to do it, right? But I think the market has spoken on what people value. And for Bitcoin, I think it's very clear that this store value, this sort of narrative has taken a hold over the years. And I think when institutions, as we see today, more and more institutions are coming into the space, they will value that. They should, one, obviously understand the technology, but two, also see what they can do to support it. If like Square is a great example, right? They put 0.5% of their treasury, $50 million into Bitcoin. They also have Square Crypto to support that, right? I mean, it makes sense that you need to maintain the value of your holdings, perhaps, and maybe even do something to help it grow.
Yeah, I love
Very
actually
logical to me.
actually I love that example because it just made me think of something. Maybe I even answered my own question a bit, but yeah, like if a lot of these institutional companies, investors come into the space, it does actually make sense what you just said, that they might hire a couple of developers to fund the open source development, because that's their new asset that they're keeping their money in, like companies like MicroStrategy. So ultimately, it just benefits everyone, actually. I wouldn't even say just the crypto space or anything like that. It's like it's just the Bitcoin network, as simply put, right? You could do anything with it. It's very powerful. But going into talking about a
And
little bit.
just before you hop off this, I think in the normal open source world, there's examples of these also, right? Like Chromium,
Yeah.
is open source, and Google obviously uses for Chrome. Microsoft uses it for their browser, Edge browser, or whatever it's called.
And we have it for Brave, right?
And Brave, certainly. And people from different companies work together to support that open source code base. So it's not something too outlandish to imagine.
Yeah. It's not too crazy, but some of the headlines that we've seen a couple of years ago, the institutional investors calling it rat poison or scam, and then they come out and they want their own like hand claps for deploying it on their own platform. I just find it really funny. But one of the I was just reading online that someone else from your team, I don't know if you echo the same belief. They said that they think institutional investors benefit the most from some of the laws of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, some of the regulations that are being kind of refined. So yeah, someone from your team, I don't know if you echo the same thing, but they're saying that a lot of the rules and regulations we have related to crypto, let's say in the US, they don't benefit the retail investor as much. So do you agree with that, or do you think that the laws do offer more of a fair ground? Because I think fair ground is important, right? We don't want this technology to be something that only institutional large players come in and benefit from. We want them in, but we don't want them to have the same power, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which parts benefit who. Certainly, I think the way I see it is more adoption, whether it's even institutions are a kind of a it's a big mix of people, right? Like, who are institutions? There are huge institutions, there are small institutions. Then institutions use Bitcoin in different ways, right? So I'm not sure which subset is benefiting from what rules, but I think overall, more awareness is always good. More sort of acceptance is always good, and more adoption is always good, right? And so whether it's large institutions, medium, small, whatever, as long as they feel more comfortable with, Bitcoin as something that they could hold without hold, trade, buy, store, whatever, and not have that sort of disdain from others, from especially from years back. I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah,
So
and
it's hard to say. I think choice is important, and so yeah, remains to be seen. I don't know exactly which part is good or bad for who.
Got it. Yeah, I'm sure you
Yeah.
work with a lot of jurisdictions in different places. Any comments on, Wyoming recently gave the green light, forgot to which company, but to launch the first, Bitcoin bank.
Kraken.
Yeah, Kraken. So
Yeah.
do you think we'll see more of that? And are you more excited for that? Like, if institutions came in and held more of our, I don't want to say our crypto, but basically the crypto that is held by more retail investors right now, do you think that will push the industry forward, or will it lead to like just institutions having more of an edge, because they don't have that edge right now?
Yeah. The Wyoming news is again, my take is it's positive, right? It only provides for more choice and more adoption for crypto. You have more institutions supporting individuals like you and me, small businesses that want to deal in crypto and maybe are being turned away from their own bank, right? So it's only positive. What I want to stress is that Bitcoin ultimately is a choice, right? You can choose to store your Bitcoin at home, maybe on a multi-sig setup, maybe on an exchange, maybe at your bank when the time comes, right? You can choose that. And I think that's the most important part is institutions allowing for individuals to make that choice on how they want to do, how they want to store and how they want to use their Bitcoin. I think that's the most important. So right now, everything's around increasing choice. When, if there's a day where, these regulations come to restrict that choice, I don't think that's positive then. So right now, we're not at that stage.
Yeah, that's actually a good answer. I'll accept that answer. If that day comes, then it's bad. But till then, I mean, it's just increasing the adoption, the software, everything. I can tell that you personally do believe in whatever opens the doors to more accessibility and adoption. So we'll go into that now, talking about, you all as an exchange are huge. You have to worry about a variety of different concerns. So I've seen that you launched a couple of DeFi products, and you've also listed some of the new DeFi tokens. So I have two questions. You can answer this. One question is, were there any difficulties or benefits that you went through when integrating specifically DeFi protocols? So it might be a little bit different to integrate at the technical level, like different chains working on different foundations. And two, I saw that you also launched your own DeFi price oracle that's built on Compound Finance's technology. So do you have like an internal team that just works on all this stuff? Like how long does it take to launch this stuff? Because it seems like you're doing it very quickly.
Yeah, we that's an interesting question. We don't specifically, just to answer it backwards, I guess, we don't have a specific team, right? We have sort of cross teams to sort of tackle specific problems and challenges as they come up. But DeFi is interesting because, there's many ways for exchanges, and ourselves included, to support DeFi. One is really just, do we want to list that token, right? Make it accessible to users to buy, invest, do whatever they want, acquire the token and then go participate in governance, whatever utility that token provides. I think that's one easy way, and that's sort of what exchanges have done in the past. Two is sort of, how do we help these? So you go a little bit further. How do you help these DeFi protocols and projects to grow, right? The Oracle is one thing you mentioned, and I think it's we're not the only ones doing it. Also, Coinbase also has participated specifically for the Compound Open Price Oracle. But it's about providing, exchanges are already that place where pricing data is basically discovered, right? Price discovery happens on exchanges today. And so how do you take that and in a more trusted way, bring that to these DeFi protocols, which sometimes have to rely on oracles and maybe weird oracle setups that may not be as secure. And so, that's another way exchanges can support the space. And then thirdly is, I think you mentioned, do exchanges even further integrate into some of these protocols? Certainly, I think this will be the trend going forward, is how do you make, you've used some of these DeFi protocols, I'm sure, where it's a bit painful, right? MetaMask, accepting smart contract authorizations, no idea what's going on, paying super expensive gas fees, waiting, and then don't know, transaction can fail. It's a bit of a weird sort of experience today. But I think exchanges play a role because they are currently, at least, sort of this trusted gateway into the crypto world. And so exchanges do have a role to play where they can also be this trusted gateway into the DeFi world. And so one example would be, integrating perhaps with, let's take Compound again as an example, would be integrating into Compound and then allowing users on the OKCoin or another exchange website to say, hey, look, how much of your assets do you want to lend out to the compound. And then the exchange in the background will deal with everything for you, right? No need to pay for gas fees, no need to deal with any of the Ethereum smart contract stuff. It just shows up as interest in your account. Much like maybe even a bank account, right? You just see it at the end of the day or end of the month, you see interest pop up. So that's one way of potentially doing it. And I think exchanges like ourselves and others are definitely going to move in that direction.
Yeah, I think actually I have like no comments there. You put that you put that really nicely, because that is a lot of the problems that people experience. While they're trying to go in and use a lot of these protocols, it's just too hard to use it themselves. So, are you saying that similar to token sets, where when yield farming launched, one of the things that token sets did within, I believe, 48 to 72 hours was they integrated, basically you could deposit ETH and they would farm for you on their backend, and you would have in this case, it was, I believe, what was that recent airdrop that happened? Oh, Uniswap. It was the Uniswap tokens, right? Mm-hmm. So people like that concept a lot, because depending on what platform you went to and where you even used your ETH, what am I thinking of? There's another platform. Anyway, there's some interest-bearing platform. They weren't eligible for the reward, so that kind of sucked, right? So I think crypto is really decentralized, but if we decentralize too much, we might lose out on some of the benefits. I'm not saying decentralization is bad, but I am saying that some of the traditional apps that people use, they gain more momentum and more usability because they're familiar. I mean, I was just talking to the founder of Lolly too. So he's like, yeah, we just want people, yeah, they have the wallet and everything like that. So do you see yourself integrating, you can answer this from, I guess, an exchange perspective. Like, what is the future of exchanges looking like? Like, I have to ask you this question. I don't really want to, but what do you think about decentralized exchanges? I mean, it's like an old question, but maybe get a new take on it, right? Because I feel like before this year, maybe even last year, we talked about a lot of these things just in principle, but now it turns out that in a virtual world, let's say, and with all of the different things happening in different countries, like people are literally using some of these products to actually survive. So yeah, just what do you think are the future of exchanges? I've talked a lot. I'll let you talk now.
No, thanks. That's I don't think it's an easy question. Honestly, I don't know, but I'll give you my take though. I think like you said, we've answered these DEX versus or decentralized exchanges for a while now. But what's changed in the past 12 months, 18 months is that there have been a lot more, I guess the example of how a DEX could work and work well is now more and more proven, right? Uniswap's a great example. But interestingly, in the early days of a DEX, that was not even the example of a DEX, right? It was something like, I don't know, like an order book type system, which would replicate what the centralized exchanges would do. That hasn't been as popular, because it turned out that simply just wanting to swap between tokens was what people wanted. And so I think DEXs and also I don't like the term, however you pronounce CEX, but I'll skip that. But centralized exchanges, I think they'll coexist, right? Because they serve different audiences and different use cases. Centralized exchanges, a lot of people split the line around, do the exchanges do custody for you? Maybe that's a centralized exchange. But there are ways to do sort of centralized exchange models, but also not custody users' assets. Other people split the line around, do you do KYC? Do you have to provide your personal information in order to transact? That's another way of looking at it. I think users that value different parts of that will naturally migrate to the solutions that serve them best, right? So today, when people trade on Coinbase, trade on ourselves, trade on other centralized exchanges, they're okay with providing their KYC, or at least they've accepted that that's the that's part of the process of gaining access to an account and have someone sort of take care of all these things for you, right? Custody, customer service, all these things, right? Where someone that trades on Uniswap has mentally accepted that if I fuck up, if I mess up,
No, you're fine.
okay, I didn't know if this was
No,
what
we
PG
accept
rating
everything
this
here.
show
We got
was.
to be as real as possible. Go ahead.
All right, so you have to own your own decisions, right? On Uniswap, on any sort of decentralized protocol or anything like that. You get hacked, okay, well, it's because you maybe didn't fully understand the smart contract, or there was a bug or something. It's on you, right? There's no one to complain to, and you understand that, and that's the trade-off. So I think, the worlds will certainly blend a bit, and I think some of the initiatives that centralized exchanges are doing to help users get access to the higher yields on DeFi, maybe the governance on DeFi, maybe even things like insurance on DeFi. These things will happen. They'll make it easier, or we will make it easier for users to access. But at the same time, users will give, or at least there will be some trade-offs to take advantage of that, hopefully maybe more familiar experience to them. So yeah, I whole load of BS, but but to a non-answer, I think.
I mean, you're definitely being real and as transparent as possible with the concept of, if you do use these, I'll say more self-sovereign, basically, you're taking full responsibility of whatever it is, your assets, your crypto. There are those trade-offs. And honestly, no one is familiar or even has experienced any of those trade-offs ever before, right? Exactly like you mentioned, there's always been someone else to lean back on. And I think even some people in crypto, it's like you have some of those beliefs, but the moment you can't access your crypto, you forgot something, you send it to a wrong address, there is no forgot password, there is no call customer support. So that kind of sucks. And I would actually like to see a blend between both. And even me personally, like I use Coinbase. I also use the Coinbase wallet, right? Differences like that. I think we need more companies to sit in between these layers, if that makes sense, to slowly ease people in, right? Like I was teaching one of my friends yesterday, just with NFTs, how to set it up, different things like that. And immediately, like, she was okay with setting up a lot of the things, but it's like, as soon your first experience is like, you have like this long string of letters. She's like, what's the address? She was like, I was expecting like something else, like a username or something like that.
I hear you.
So, we talked a lot about DeFi. We talked a lot about exchanges. I kind of want to get your thoughts on stable coins, because I know that you all are, again, pushing forward with trying to integrate and support compound finance with stable coin, the CUSDC and the CUSDT tokens. So, just being an exchange, right? Do you actually see more activity? You can answer this to the extent that you want. You actually see more activity in things like US dollars flowing in, or do you think it flows into stable coins first and then crypto? You can tell me about that as much as you want.
Yeah, so exchanges, obviously a lot of exchanges do different things, but we are firmly on the fiat. We support fiat, right? We support dollars, we support euros. And so I think we sit closest to, let's say, the traditional financial system. And so when users come to us, oftentimes it is because they're bringing in dollars and they're trying to get into crypto, and vice versa, on and off ramp into the crypto and traditional world. And so, I would still say that most people come in to get exposure to Bitcoin, number one, right? But number two is, as you've identified, getting exposure into stable coins is actually super, super appealing. One of our most popular pairs is USDT. And we see users around the world, and they come in to get in and out depending on their needs. Some of these are businesses, right? They have their own business demands, whether they're servicing their own clients or they're doing trade or whatever it is. And others are individuals that want to, let's say, get a little bit of USDT, a little bit of DAI, USDC or something. So then they can go play in the DeFi space, right? Go yield farming, whatever it is. And so, I think for exchanges like us, where we sit right at that intersection between traditional and crypto, we're providing that bridge for people to go back and forth. Yeah, I think that's what we see. It depends, obviously, on what the market, how hot the market is for different sectors, but broadly, there's a lot of use cases there for stablecoins.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very bullish on stable coins as well, because I think at first I was really caught up with trying to see more people just get right into crypto. But talking to my friends and even other colleagues in the space, it's actually very difficult to try to immediately get exposure to something you don't understand immediately. And at least if they go from a US dollar, which is just a promissory note, honestly, at least if you put it in something like USDC, it is actually happening on chain. You can kind of get into the intricacies of what
Still
chain
a
that's
promissory
happening.
note, though.
Huh? It's still a
Still a
promissory note.
promissory note.
So, do you think that, so is that even an improvement then if we just put it on stable coins and they're controlled by institutions? Like, is that actually better?
I think, better's tough, right? It better for who and better for what? It's really tough. I think what the center team Circle have done is, obviously they've taken dollars in a trustworthy way, put it on Ethereum and other chains now, and sort of enabled these dollars to do more, right? You can now do more cool, crazy things with them. That's super great. I think it really opens up our space. Like you said, it's such a great and easier mental on-ramp for someone to get familiar with what crypto can do when it's all still based in dollars, right? But like everything else, there's still a trade-off, right? Circle can, or Coinbase or Center can blacklist your account, right? They can blacklist your Ethereum address and freeze those tokens, much like a bank could. And so, that's the trade-off. If you don't worry about that, you're just, spending a few $100 here and there. The risk is quite low, right? But to some people, that's a big risk, and that's something that's something they have to watch out for. So it depends. Sorry, yeah, a bit of a non-answer also. Yeah.
No, I mean, we're here to discuss all these things. We obviously can't get too deep into specific topic, unfortunately, but yeah, no, I think those are good points. And I like what you said about at least you're opening the use cases of a dollar. If it's backed by the same thing, at least you can immediately send it to people, and in many cases, right, you can gain more interest. I've seen that be like one of the #1 things to get people into the space right now. Just that one argument of, you're getting really no interest with your dollars right now. And if you are anyway, the banks are receiving most of the benefits. I think that's what a lot of DeFi, started to be about, right? All this lending. I wanted to ask you another question about DeFi, because when you were kind of talking about what you list and your exchange listings, walk me through that process a bit of what you even consider when you look at DeFi, because at least some of these other tokens, you can see that it was made by this developer or it's around for this long. For the people out there, let's say you're new, we're talking about tokens here that had $400 million locked up into it in 48 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And then you sort of get this race between exchanges and decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, where everyone is rushing to list the token. The more it gets listed, you see that cascading effect, right? So how do you even go about that, creating new standards? What do you look for in an industry that's like brand new? We're not even talking about months. We're talking about this happened this week.
Yeah.
How do you know what to list? Is my question to you.
It's a challenge, right? The exchange space is competitive, but I think, again, without hopefully not repeating myself too much, is really all the reason why exchanges are listing them very quickly is because the users are sort of itching for that, right? There's demand, right? So first and foremost. And then two is we have to evaluate, and these are the same rules and same sort of criteria we look for all other tokens, is whether or not it is legal to do so, right? You have to see if these are we don't deal in anything that's classified as a security, right? So we have to apply those tests to make sure that they're not. That's number one, right? We cannot break or violate any of these rules and regulations just in order to be first to market, right? That's not that's not what we're trying to do. And then you know, it's a balance between those two, unfortunately. I think there's no magic formula. There's nothing super secretive I can share here. It's about balancing those two, weighing all the issues, and discussing it internally here and making sure we're comfortable with it for our users.
Yeah, it all has to be done relatively quickly. And I think maybe that's an area where the DEXs maybe have a slight advantage, to where they're like, we listed it, quote unquote, but not really. Like,
certainly,
who actually listed it, right? They're like what if you had an open source community of developers that all work together to list something? Then it's like, who actually listed it? But anyway, definitely when it comes to talking about compliance and all these licenses, I think many people are super scared of that. And going into that topic, I want to ask you, I want to get to know you a bit better, little personal anecdote. Tell me a spooky or scary story you had so far, just in your time that you've been in crypto, and maybe also let everyone know, like, you know, kind of to end things off a bit, where you started and how long you've been in the space.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with that. I was, you know, I got interested in the space back in 2013. I was actually working in the Bay Area on another startup. And in our free time, we would go to Bitcoin meetups and things like that, and just sort of really fascinated me. My previous background prior to that was in finance. I spent 6-7 years in finance. I was at an investment bank. I was doing consulting also. And so, you know, this intersection of tech, finance, economics, sort of monetary, you know, aspects really intrigued me. And so, long story short, I dived professionally into the space in early 2016. So I've been with OKCoin for about 4.5 years now, almost 5 years. And so my scariest, I think, you know, story in crypto, I guess, is something that you alluded to earlier, and I think most people still feel on a day-to-day basis, is really when you send that first transaction. That is a scary feeling. Like you said, right? There's all these random digits and letters there. Did you type it in right? What happens if you get it wrong? Double check, triple check. Send a little bit maybe to get a feel for it. Like, that is just a spooky experience. I gotta say. I don't know if you agree with me, but that to me, I still remember the first time I did it. I had set up a paper wallet. I was trying to move some funds back just to get a feel for this like magic technology. And yeah, it's burnt in my mind of that fear of losing or messing up right at the very beginning.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'm always spooked out about that. Send a little bit and then verify later. Jason, thank you so much for joining me here today. Jason Lau, the founder of the CEO of OKCoin. I'm Roshan Mirajkar, one of your hosts for REIMAGINE 2020 V4, and I'll let you all tune back in. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.